I got a notification that Twitch booted me off, so we'll see how my connection is tonight. Maybe not so good. I just gave introductory stuff in the last few minutes, so if that gets cut off, so be it. But we're going to build some Django apps. Let's get to it. So I'm going to work on my homeschool application this evening, and we'll see how things go. So what I'm going to do, I've got a flow in my application that I'm not particularly happy with after reviewing some of it, and I want to modify that flow to I think improve the experience for users. So we'll talk on that as we get into this area. So where do we need to go and what do we need to change? The flow is related to starting a school year, and that starting happens through enrolling in a grade level. So after a user creates a grade level for the year, they will have to enroll their student in order to actually have their student participate in the grade for the year. And I'm not particularly happy with how the flow came out. And so we'll see what it looks like currently, and then we can talk through and go ahead and modify the code for what I want to do. So let's jump over to the code area. Actually, well, let's fire up the web server and get stuff going. And then we'll see the area we're talking about. Okay, I think this account has no data yet, so we need to log into a different account in order to view everything. And I have a testing account that has a bunch of information in it that should help us get to the right spot. So we'll start by logging in. And we'll go to the school year page. And here's where, here's exactly where I don't like this. So this page, you can see that these buttons that I have on this page, they're pretty bold buttons. They're very big, and it doesn't scale with the UI to have a lot of them in place. So I want to minimize the number of buttons that are there. And as I think about the school year and what it represents, there's only going to be a certain time window when people actually want to enroll their student. And usually that's right before the school year happens, and after that, they don't want to be nagged about this all school year. Every time they come to this page, I don't want it staring in their page to add some new student. Usually people are not adding students mid-year, especially for homeschool families. That doesn't really make sense. So having this button present is kind of a strange thing. And the reason it's present right now is because in my test account here, I have 3 students. And you can see it's indicating like one of them is not enrolled. But what I've pointed out in past streams is you could have a scenario where your student no longer needs the app. For instance, they graduate from high school and they're done. And you want to keep their data in your account because you might have younger children in your family, but you don't want to be constantly reminded that your student is no longer going to enroll in stuff. And, so there's probably ways to handle that, to say like graduated and essentially mark the student as inactive. But I can tell you that the way that this enroll button works is it looks for any student that happens to exist that is not enrolled in this school year, and then it tries to show it. And not only does that seem weird, it doesn't even seem like the right place to show it, because really you're not going to enroll a student in a school year. You really want to enroll them into a particular grade level. So the student has a personalized experience for their grade level. So what I want to do is essentially kill this button here and then have information down here that says, if there are no students enrolled, I want some kind of informational panel, but probably between the second grade label and the courses saying you have no students enrolled in this grade. Enroll 1 now, or something like that. Some kind of call to action that goes across that is very easy to highlight and tell the user that they still have stuff to do if they're not ready. So that will kind of optimize for the primary use case, because I think that the average homeschool family that will be using the application will probably have 1 student per grade. Unless, of course, you have twins or triplets or something, then you might have different circumstances. But for the average case and the average family, you would have 1 student per grade. So if I can put a banner that says enroll, then that would be the only time that that person has to enroll. They get this really nice experience of, I know exactly where to go to enroll my student, and they can move on. In the event that they have multiple kids that are going to enroll, I want to change this page. So right now, if you go to this page, it takes you to an edit version. And the edit version shows all of the stuff that you see here, but it's really about editing the stuff. And what's missing is a detail version of the page that shows a bunch of information and has buttons to take certain actions, which is essentially what this page is. This page that we're looking at is a very it's a more advanced detail page. So it's got some actions that you can do. It's showing details about the school year. And so I want to do the same thing for a grade level, where this enroll student button would move into the grade level detail where it needs to be. So the 2 actions are, it's kind of like moving the actions down a level closer to the data where it matters. And I think by doing that, it will help new users as well, because one of the things that happens at the end of onboarding, which I might even be able to show, what's that going to be? Let's go to the start on onboarding section, and let's jump to the end of making a task, and we want to see the school year. Okay, here's this big banner that we show, and we have all these actions of what they can do next. And so I kind of want to guide them to, here you can do these things of creating another grade level or adding a student or whatever. And I want them to have more help, because this section right here does not talk about enrollment, because at the point of which the person has finished the onboarding process, they're not ready to enroll somebody yet. They've created their school year, they've created a course and a task, and they're just not ready because they don't even have a student defined. So it didn't make sense to put enrollment information in this celebration banner to say, you're done, here's what to do next. So we need a little bit of help to guide them to that point of, they need to understand what enrollment is, and they need to understand what they need to do. And having just this button of enroll student without any context, I don't think really helps. So I want to kill this button because I don't like it here. I think it's distracting from all the other things that a school year already does. And I want to add information here. So there's going to be an extra bit of context that needs to check that the grade level has students enrolled or not in order to display the banner. And then that's probably about as far as we'll get this evening. We might get to some of the detail page of the actual grade level, but I don't want to get too ahead of myself. So that's what we're going to do. And I think it corresponds to this issue right here, or a couple issues. There's the remove enrollment call to action, which is the button that I said I don't like. And then there's this new way to enroll. Yep, and so we're going to try and tackle this first item in this issue and this whole other issue. Removing a button should be not hard at all, right? Because it's deleting stuff. It might require deleting some of the context as well, because there might be some data that is no longer needed on the school year detail page. So let's go to the template first, which is the school year detail template, and check out what we need to do. There's that welcome banner that you can see that shows when a certain get parameter is in there. And there's some details about the school year. And here we've got, looks like the enroll student button only even appears if there's an enroll URL present. So I've already got some logic that must guard against when to show that button. And I know that's the case because I wanted the enrollment button to only appear when there were students that were unenrolled. But like, as I said, that enrollment logic did not factor in this idea of a student who's just done with School Desk. So I think what we want to do is delete this chunk of code here, and then go and delete the associated chunk of code for the enroll URL that is in the context of the view. So that's a pretty simple deletion right there. And let's go to the view area. So this is should be a school view. And let's go find the enroll URL. And you can see here it is. I've got this, it's added to the context. and you can see how enrollment works. It's deciding whether to show it or not based on if there are students, and then if those students, or if there are, okay, I see how I did this. It's not even great logic, to be honest. Like I took account of how many students do you have. I took account of how many enrollments could you have. So it's not even doing the exact checking of are these students in the grade level or not. So all around, I'm not really a fan. So let's also do a search for enroll URL, because I'm sure I have some tests as well that need to be removed as well. And we can delete this and go ahead and delete all of this. And it's a little strange to be deleting code sometimes, but I think it's something that is important to do, to be comfortable removing things that are no longer working the way you expect them to or want them to. Designs, they change. You discover new ways to do things, and you shouldn't be afraid to delete code because your version control system has it. So if I ever need to get that kind of code back, which I don't think I will, but if I ever found some need, then I could go search through my repository for that. So I'd redid my search for enroll URL, and you can see down in the bottom here in the quick fix menu that there are only some test files left. And if I run this test case, I'm going to have a bunch of failures because those enroll URLs are not there anymore. And so it's a test. So a few tests that got broken, just 3. So we can delete enroll URL from the get test here, and then this test is all about checking that enroll URL, so that doesn't need to stay. And same with this one. So neither of those need to stay. And so that if I delete this, which I did, the test should now pass totally, which is good. And so let's do a couple things. Let's make sure that all of the tests are passing and we still have full coverage. And that'll be the fix for that version. But you'll notice that I'm going to commit it this way, but I've essentially regressed functionality. Probably if I had done this properly, I would have done it in such a way where I might have a feature flag, and I might have done the other functionality first and tested things out. But really, I don't have users that I have to worry about that for now. So I'm not messing anybody up and removing their ability to enroll because it doesn't really matter right now. And I'll do this in a way where the feature is totally done and the new version is added, and then I'll deploy after that. So there's nothing pushing me to do deployments right now. I'm not doing continuous delivery, which means constantly deploying whatever's the latest. And so I'm safe to kind of take the actions that I want to do. All right, so everything passed. We deleted the test. We deleted the little bit of code that was in the view, and we deleted the chunk of template that is no longer needed. So we'll add that. And actually, what I needed to store in my head, what is the actual URL that we're using here? Enrollment create. We'll need to remember that for later, probably. Yeah, because enrollment create depends upon school year UUID. All right, well, okay. I think that's what we'll need to remember. So let's commit that and move on to the next issue. Remove the enroll student button from the school year detail page. That seems like a good commit message, and that fixes number 239. Whoops, double. And again, I know that Twitch bombed out on me and I lost connection. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask me anything about Python, Django, or web development. I'm happy to pause and take questions as they come along. Otherwise, I'll continue chugging away at the application here. So what's next? What do we need to do to get this next chunk in place? I said that the thing that we need to call out is that the school year detail page, which is this view that we were just looking at, which I'm now no longer on. Okay, here we go. It has the grade levels, and you can see that it does a prefetch of the grade levels, and it does a prefetch of school breaks, and that's all important and good. And then it does some iteration here on each grade level. And since those are prefetched, it's not another query. It's reusing the same query from the self object here, which is the school year at this point, and populates grade levels. So what we really need is some kind of Boolean context to say has students is actually what I'm thinking of, or yeah, that's probably accurate, because an enrollment in this code modeling is a connection between a grade level and a student. So I don't really need to call out has enrollments, because the enrollments is just indirectly talking about the connection between grades and students. So as long as we can say something like has students, then that should be sufficient. So the way we're going to do that is query the enrollment table, and the enrollment table is where this relationship exists, and we're just going to look for any instances of the grade level. Probably could do this a little bit. So this will do queries in a loop. So technically I'll be adding an n+1 query bug here, because I've got a loop and then I'm doing enrollments per this, and maybe that's wrong. So let me put in what I think is like the easy version of this, and then we can have a think on it and see if it's really the way we want to go, because there is another strategy that we could apply for this. But let's do simple thing first. We're going to say the grade level, and then we're going to give it the grade level object. And yeah, I don't have any bots, direct cherry, but I'm happy to explain the project. So I am the bot here. So this is a homeschool application that I'm using for my family. It's a Django app that I'm building, and eventually want to use it, make it accessible to other homeschool families. So I'm building it with an eye for not just making it work for my family, but making it work in the general. And today I'm working on the connection with grade levels and students and stuff. So that's the modeling context. So I'm doing this enrollment filter here, where I am filtering, and essentially this is a query on the enrollment table. It's looking for any rows that have grade level and saying, do any of them exist? But notice what's happening. Like let's say you had a gigantic family, in my opinion, of 10 kids, and you had 10 different grade levels. That would mean that if I do it this way, this has students line is going to execute one query per grade level that you experience. Now the question is, am I comfortable with that? And frankly, I think I might be, because what's the alternative? The alternative is I do a query outside here, and I can say, I know I've got all the grade levels that are from the object, so I could say, give me all of the enrollments that include the grade levels that I just queried. So enrollment.objects, if I could type today, objects.filter, and then say grade levels in, or grade level, no, what would I even need to do? Grade level in, yeah, and then a list, and then say self object grade levels dot all. And so what that would do is that would give me all the enrollments, which is fine. It is pretty close, But then I'd have to loop, as I'm doing the grade levels, I'd have to say, do some kind of list comprehension here to check each enrollment and see, does any of them match the grade level ID? If so, then there's a student here. And, that would work, I guess, but let's think about the real average use case. So I could do it in one query, true. Or I could recognize that the average homeschool family, even if it's a large family, is going to have 4 or 5, I would say what's the US average? I don't know, 2, 3 kids, something like that. And so if you have kids in school, then you've got 2 or 3 grade levels. So we're talking like very small number of queries here, which makes it, in my opinion, not worth doing this extra optimization because it's confusing. So again, that's another kind of lesson about doing design, is that yes, you can always make queries, or you can almost always make queries more efficient, or make views more efficient. But is it really valuable? Is this gonna make or break my site if I have a couple of extra queries on the enrollment table? Probably not. And eventually, if I have traffic and performance matters, what I'm really going to do is start measuring stuff, and I'm going to find the views that are actually slow, and it's almost guaranteed to not be here. And then in the future, if it did turn out to be here, I'd eat my words and fix it. That's how that would work. Okay, so I'm speculatively putting this in here. I haven't written any test for this, but let's go do that now. We're going to go into the test. We'll close this out. We'll give ourselves a bit more room. And we are in the school year detail view. This doesn't have a grade level in this one, so that's not going to be very useful. And I want to have a test that has grade level info. Yeah, here it is. So if I run this test now, it's going to fail, or it should fail, because the context is not going to match, because I just added a new key. And I wrote the code incorrectly, so it's definitely not going to work. It's supposed to be objects, not object. If I run this test, it's a little hard to see from that diff maybe, but the thing to notice is that has students is false in the real value, but in the test right now it expects has students is not there. And I feel like this is accurate because I've not created a student. Let's check it for a student for that grade level. So let's do an enrollment. We'll use the enrollment factory. So I want to test the positive case here, and so I want to create one that has a grade level and give it the grade level. All right. So all we're doing is creating an enrollment, so that this will in turn create a student, and then this should now be true. So I could switch this to has students, and we'll say true. And this test should now pass, which it does. Great. From that, we can now go back to the template. So we've got this chunk done. We'll return to the school year detail page, and we're going to come to the area that has the grade levels. And it's up here, and here's the grade level. Let's see. Here's the grade level name with a link, and it's got a flex. So this is a flex box that is for this row right here, because I've got a button over here. There's a flex grow, and so we want to put our new area between that and the actual courses. So really it goes right here. And I'm going to say, I just want to see it for a moment. So if has students, or no, we only want to show this when there's no students. So if not has student, then we can display something, and let's just see if we can see it. So hello world. And when I refresh the page, once I restart the server, you're not going to see it because this data right here for second grade and kindergarten on this sample data has a student attached to each one. So what we're going to have to do in order to see this in action, or it shouldn't. Ooh, that's interesting. So I did something wrong. So maybe I did some logic wrong. Let's go back. Has students is not at the global. So I wrote my template wrong. So it's this grade level info is the thing that we need to check. Okay, that's what I would expect. So now in order to see that properly, we need to create a new grade level that will have no students. So no student grade. And if we come to the bottom here, we're going to find that there is already a call to action down here. So this is another wrinkle. Frankly, I forgot about this wrinkle. So we need to think about this before making further action. So really, I only want to display this. When do I want to display this? The primary thing about making a grade level is defining courses. And I don't want to have two calls to action right here. It's true that there will be more than one thing to do, but I don't want to distract you by saying enroll your student or add a course. I just want it to be add a course as step one. The next step, fine. It can be you need to enroll your student. That's okay. But I don't want them mixed. So in other words, what I need to do is I need to make this conditional of when to show this extra part have more knowledge. And the call to action for the grade level stuff only appears when there are no courses. So when this thing is empty. So we need to say, we only need to want that to appear if there are no courses. So if not grade level info dot courses and not as students. So is that logically right? And can we simplify that? There's probably I'm blanking out on my Boolean laws. There's probably a simpler way to write this that might be cleaner. So let me think for a second, because I'm seeing the not and the not, and 9:30 brain does not work as well as 8:30 in the morning brain. So I'll think. So when should this appear? It should appear if you have to have that second condition is important. But the first condition, we want it to fail. We want it to short circuit. So I think we want the and to short circuit this thing. So maybe that is right in the way it's written. It certainly would work the way it's written. So let's refresh this. So the hello world should go away because we haven't added a course yet. What's going on? There's no course yet. Oh, I know what I'm doing. I do want courses. That's the condition. Sorry. I don't know why I got that backwards. So you have, in order to show this thing, there has to be courses. In other words, I don't want it conflicting with the state when there's no courses, and there has to be no students. So this is the right logic. All right, so it went away, and we're going to add our first course. We'll say science. And then we'll return to this area. And now you can see we've got the right condition to show our message, which looks ugly at the moment, but we'll fix that. So the next thing I need to highlight is that how do we want this to look? Is this something I want to be styled pretty simplistically, or do I want it to be like have the big image that you just saw? I think I'd rather have this be more subdued, because there might be a time where they're not ready to enroll their student yet, and I just kind of want it to be a informational kind of idea. So let's